Hello, hello, hello. Sure, this thing's on now. It's another installment of Onyx Void. I'm out walking, enjoying the weather that's not 110 degrees for once in the Southwest. Outside. Um, and, man, it's been a rough day. Nah, it hasn't been that rough. I'm lying. Well, I finally got the payout from all my work, and the long and short of it is I went to the dollar store, put some change in my pocket, and that change fell out as I was bicycling back home. And the long part of it is that I was so angry about that. You know, I jumped back on the bicycle, and I ride back, try to retrace my steps to see what I can find. At least a receipt, because I might have to return some of the stuff that, you know, I bought. And I found the receipt. It was cool. I found $5 of the $17 of change that I got back from, the purchase, which kind of sucked. But I didn't realize that I had activated a passive ability that I think I was born with. I know that sounds kooky or whatever. It sounds like I'm just making stuff up, but it's the passive ability of casting entropy on mechanical devices. Anything that has a joint, spring, or something that moves, I tend to break things just being near them. And that's pretty much how I figured out how to fix things, because things would keep breaking. And in this era of skipping out on everything that's being manufactured, not creating a good product at a fair price, as Gary Clary would say, I I broke my seat, and it is a frequent occurrence. Actually, it's a frequent occurrence, um, and it seems to activate when I'm stressed out, and it can be any clearer than today of me losing that $17, which represented 1 hour of work that I just went into a warehouse hell cube for, that I wasn't really willing to lose on a whim, just because my pockets just weren't holding the currency correctly. So I found a little bit of the currency left that didn't get blown away by the wind. I found the receipt, but I lost a bicycle seat, at least part of it, just due to my latent ability and stress. So I didn't really win anything today. I actually lost a lot. And I'll hobble this bicycle around as long as I can with its broken seat until it fully falls apart. But you're here because we were talking about banking, and I already seen in reply to one of my subscribers, one of my posters. Well, somebody posted a comment of how you're supposed to survive when basically inflation and the banking system is broken. The banking system is broken and inflation's eating you alive. And you're not really. You're supposed to just curl up into a ball and hope for the best. You know, especially if you're young. You're 18 through your 30s. Like I said, Aaron Caleri would say, don't try until you're 35, because that's when generally people start to respect you and actually pay you a decent wage. But You're supposed to go out and just live life and hope for the best. You know, if you find yourself homeless, well, you're young, you'll bounce back. You'll get a job somewhere, you'll live in halfway houses, you'll couch surf, you'll do things that, you wouldn't try if you were in your mid 30s, late 40s, early 40s, because generally by that time you are established, you have some kids or something, and you can't be screwing around like that as a male. As a female, that's a completely different story. I'm not really going to talk about that because that's not my experience. But we're here to talk about the banking cartels. Now, I'm probably going to get a little bit of this wrong. I'm probably going to spaz out. I'm probably going to be all over the place with this. But I'm going to try to lore dump on why banking is the way it is from what I can kind of remember from all the research I did into why banking is what it is, especially the Keynesian banking. If you ever heard that term, it's probably gonna get, like I said, this is probably gonna get this video shadow banned. But I don't care if you hear me, you're with me, you hear me, like and subscribe. I don't care to get any of this information out because, like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. Plenty of people have talked about it. If you want to dive more into it, like I said, there's plenty of people on the YouTubes or any other social media platform that's already talked about this ad nauseum, and you can go find it anywhere. But the basic of it is that before, what was it, 1912 or 1907, one of those, there was a currency, but it wasn't like a state currency. Basically, it was just silver and gold. But at some point, there was a group of people that came together and said, "Hey, we should make this paper money. We should make this paper money, these coins and stuff, to make it so that everybody has an equal amount of wealth stored everywhere, and it's redeemable everywhere." Because the whole problem was that we don't have now. The whole problem was that traveling from the west coast of America to the east coast of America was pretty dangerous if you had a large sum of money, and banks were supposed to make it so that those large sums of money were always within your grasp. And that's how banking started, as they got the public on board with the whole ideal that they need to use banks. So fast forward to 1971. Wait, no. Fast forward a few years actually, and you get the Great Depression. And I believe what happened was, don't quote me on this, is that because because there wasn't enough money to go around, and the money was solid then, the poor people ran out of money as all the money consolidated into a few small hands, including the Rockefellers. And when the money stopped flowing, as it is now in current day, the market crashed, as currency is supposed to flow. It's called currency for a reason. You're supposed to trade it between, the public. So we had the market crash, and then we fast forward to 1971. I'm probably skipping some pretty significant historic events, but 1971 was definitely a big one, where Nixon declared that the United States USD was no longer pegged to gold and silver. You couldn't go into the vaults and claim your take your paper money or your coins. Your coins are no longer made of silver or gold, are a derivative of copper or silver. But you can take your paper notes and I think they were greenbacks back then, called greenbacks. You can take those and redeem them for gold because they were no longer tied to gold, basically. So it was just based on the production of the people of the United States. And back then we had a lot less people, and what we put out was a lot more quality. Let's put it that way. It's built to last. Everything from Maytag dryers to microwaves to 1969 Plymouth Hemi Cudas that are some of them still around today. Same with the 1969 Chargers. Some of them still around today. If the Dukes of Hazzard didn't destroy so many. But yeah, and that was basically the end of it. But what was happening in the background of all this banking, which really collapsed the leg of banking, was that they would basically print money out of thin air by taking the deposits of, normal everyday people and corporations, and then collateralizing that money and basically lending out money on top of the money that was put into the banks. So you put in $1, and then they say that we're gonna back $10 that we loan with that dollar that you put in, or something to that effect. And that's how the banks were able to give out loans that were then repaid later with interest that would build the banks more money. And sometimes it worked, sometimes the economy didn't pull through, and we had a recession and collapse, and we would start all over again, and that continued ad nauseum to here we are today. And we're coming up on what is, I would consider, the silent depression, since you're not allowed to really say it's a depression because that would ruin the whole schema of things. You're not allowed to say it on main channels of the media out loud, but everyone can see it, everyone can feel it, and everything's driving down to the bottom dollar because the money that's been loaned out is basically worthless because nobody can pay back any of that because they can't squeeze more dollars out of the people that are putting money into the system. And it's a very complicated scale of balances that only the most Dungeons and Dragons aloof of them with their 200 IQ, very, very curly, lumpy brains can come up with. And it's putting people in a position to just have a bad time, basically, overall. They're frozen in time. They can't do anything. They can't become adults. They can't go out and enjoy life for what it is. Not saying that life is just pure consumerism, but what we use to connect to each other most of the time is through consumerism. So, at least in the United States, the US of A, there's usually, even something as little as a bulk coffee from you, or somebody buys you a beer so you can talk to them longer as you get sloppily drunk or slightly tipsy. Those things are how humans, I can say, connect with each other, posturate to each other. Buy a little gift, Maybe like and subscribe. Let's slip that in there. So we can posture it to each other and, keep this party going as long as we possibly can. But we're not, we're not living as the currency. And a lot of people forget this. This guy, I'm gonna completely butcher his name, Ajit Pai, came on to the mainstream media as a figurehead, and basically stated that this was in 2020 or 2021. Basically, that banks don't have to even keep physical currency anymore if they don't want to. They don't have to keep physical currency on hand, which means that we are moving to a digital dollar, but it means that there's no value to that dollar. It's just ones and zeros in someone else's computer that says that someone else saying that you actually have traded your time for this amount of value that's then recorded onto their ledgers. So where we are today is a digital currency, a transition to it. And I had to ask, is that currency going to be worth anything? Will people actually, accept it? I mean, I guess they have to. I mean, if you're going to pay your bills, you're going to pay your utilities and keep your electricity on, your gas if you use that, your water if you have that. If you're going to keep any of that on, at some point you're going to have to use the currency that is required by the state. But there are been layer cases out there that show that the people don't necessarily have to use the system that's put in place for them. Yes, I'm talking about Bitcoin and other actual cryptocurrencies. I don't consider Bitcoin a cryptocurrency anymore. And I'm explaining why in some other video, otherwise this video would be super long. But Bitcoin maybe had been like some big hoopla back in 2017 to 2022 before AI became the big move. But Bitcoin was there to show, whether it was created by the CIA or created by some guy in his basement, it was there to show that we don't have to, as citizens of the United States, as citizens of the world, because Bitcoin is everywhere, we don't have to accept the currency system as it is. And the fact that there's so much government pushback when even the government itself commits treason, the fact that it's so much pushback means that there's something there. There's something the governmentes, you want to put it in Latin, governmente, doesn't want the people figuring out. Now, this is going to spun out to a bunch of other videos talking about regulations, talking about how banking and the government are basically working hand in hand, how so many other things that really govern our daily lives is just a belief system. But if you take anything from this video, know that this is not the end. Eventually, something else has to come take the place of the current system that takes your value, whether it's working, whether it's your life value, whether it's anything, and puts it into a mode, a means of transfer. And that can even be back to the olden times, as some people are doing. That could be even gold and silver, you know. But something will come and change the system, and you just have to live long enough to see that happen, and hope that you're somewhat on top of it before somebody else is. The biggest thing to do is to, I don't want to sound repetitive or corny, but is to have a skill that other people need. And that's just the basis of our economy. Somebody breeds chickens, and they have eggs, and they have chicken meat, they drumsticks. Who doesn't love a good grilled drumstick, you know? And another person has, I don't know, corn that can feed the chickens. You know, they grow corn, the chickens need corn, and there's a trade. There's value there. Of course, that also alludes to one of the biggest concerns of creating value is owning the land. And a lot of people gloss over that. Who owns the land? And that would really get this channel demonetized. That would really get the channel demonetized if we really dug into that as a video topic. Because that's where the bread and butter is. If you don't own the land, forget the currency, forget everything else. You are a, how to say, if you don't own the land, you are a, I'm trying to be nice about this, a asset to the system, to the person, to the group that owns that land. And until you own the land, which includes not only cultivating it, but defending it, you can't create value. And that's one of the bigger issues that a lot of people that tell you to get skills, all this blah, 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 don't tell you. Yes, it would require you to, you know, build a military, build your own currency, you know, claim your borders, you know, build trust in people, you know, that, because you're not going to do it alone, and actually have something to trade to generally other countries in order to get what you need to sustain a population. But that all comes after you own the land. And that's, like I said, that's what a lot of people just completely gloss their eyes over. Some of the most hopeful trends currencyist, I think I just made that up, leave that out. So if I left you with anything in this video to think about, this has come out of this void that you're probably being sucked into. Leave some comments, leave some thoughts, anything you want to talk about, and I'll continue splintering off into other topics and hopefully not get demonetized or shadow banned. And I'll see you in the next one.